It was a quiet, freezing morning on Long Island's South Shore, December 2010. The ocean winds swept across Gilgo Beach, carrying the soft hum of waves against miles of empty dunes. A police officer was out early, searching for a missing woman's dog, a small lead in a case that had grown cold. The sand crunched beneath his boots as the sun began to rise through the fog. Everything seemed still, almost peaceful, until something caught his eye near the edge of the grass. At first, it looked like nothing more than debris carried in by the tide. But as he stepped closer, a strange unease set in. The air felt heavier. The world around him went silent. What he discovered that morning was not the missing woman's dog, but the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel over the next decade. That lonely stretch of sand would soon become the center of one of America's darkest mysteries, a place where secrets had been buried for years, hidden just beneath the surface. No one knew it yet, but the investigation that started that day would expose a trail of horror, deception, and a killer hiding in plain sight. In the weeks that followed the first discovery, investigators expanded their search along the quiet stretch of Gilgo Beach. What started as one isolated scene soon began to reveal a pattern no one could ignore. The winds carried the same cold silence, the same uneasy feeling, as if the dunes themselves were hiding secrets. Day after day, officers and forensic teams combed through miles of sand, guided by helicopters above and K9 units below. Then came the moment that changed everything. A second set of remains was found, then a third, and a fourth. Each discovery deepened the mystery and raised one terrifying question. How could all of this have gone unnoticed for so long? As the investigation grew, news trucks lined the roads, and reporters broadcast live updates across the country. The once quiet community of Long Island was suddenly at the center of a national storm. Everyone wanted answers, but none were coming. The police faced growing pressure, the public demanded justice, and behind it all, a hidden killer's shadow loomed over the shore. The Gilgo Beach mystery had only just begun. Months turned into years, and what began as one of the most intense investigations in New York's history slowly faded into uncertainty. Detectives followed hundreds of leads, interviewed witnesses, and searched nearby towns. Yet the trail kept growing colder. The evidence was confusing, the patterns unclear, and the number of potential victims continued to rise. Rumors began to swirl through Long Island's quiet communities. Some believed the killer was a local. Others whispered it might be someone within law enforcement itself. Theories multiplied, but answers never came. With every passing year, frustration deepened. Families of the missing women pleaded for justice, while investigators faced public doubt and mounting pressure. By 2015, the Gilgo Beach case had become one of America's most haunting, unsolved mysteries. The files were thick, the leads exhausted, and the truth buried under a decade of silence. But beneath the surface, somewhere out there, the person responsible was still living an ordinary life, unseen, untouched, and unsuspected. More than 10 years had passed since the first discovery at Gilgo Beach. The case had grown cold, the files buried under layers of unanswered questions. But in early 2022, a new wave of determination rose within law enforcement. A special task force was formed, uniting local police, state investigators, and the FBI. Their mission was clear: re-examine every piece of evidence with fresh eyes and modern technology. This new team started where others had left off. They reanalyzed old phone data, digital footprints, and DNA samples once considered unusable. Advanced forensics revealed new patterns, hidden connections between the victims, their last locations, and one possible suspect who had somehow escaped attention for years. The detectives worked quietly, avoiding public attention. Late nights in the command center were filled with silence, the only sounds being the hum of computers and the rustle of new files opening. For the first time in over a decade, there was hope again. Something in the data, a signal, a call, a trace, was pointing them toward a name that would soon shake the entire nation. By mid-2022, after months of late-night work and digital tracing, investigators began to focus on a single man. His name was Rex Heuermann, an architect from Massapequa Park, just miles from Gilgo Beach. On the surface, he was everything ordinary: a family man, a professional, a quiet neighbor who waved from his driveway. But behind that calm exterior, detectives started uncovering something deeply unsettling. Cell phone records placed his devices near the same areas and times where victims were last seen. Old burner phones connected to his home address, and online data linked to disturbing searches and secret communications. Still, the task force moved carefully. Months of silent observation, gathering evidence piece by piece, ensuring that no mistake would be made this time. In public, Rex Heuermann continued his normal life, going to work, taking the train, talking to clients, never realizing that the world around him was closing in. The investigators watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment. The man long hidden behind an ordinary face was about to be revealed as the center of one of America's most shocking mysteries. It was a warm July morning in 2023, when the quiet streets of Midtown Manhattan became the center of breaking news. After more than a decade of mystery, detectives finally made their move. Surveillance teams had followed Rex Heuermann for months, documenting every step, his routines, his routes, and his habits. When he left his office that morning, he had no idea the investigation that started years ago on a cold beach was about to reach its end. Outside his workplace, agents and police vehicles surrounded him in seconds. Calm, silent, and stunned, the man long suspected to be hiding behind layers of normal life was taken into custody. Within hours, the headlines exploded across the country. Architect arrested in Gilgo Beach Murders. Back in Long Island, investigators began searching his home, uncovering years of digital records, maps, and personal items that connected him to the case. Neighbors watched in disbelief. The friendly man they passed every day had become the face of one of America's most haunting criminal mysteries. After 13 years of confusion, false leads, and silence, justice had finally begun to move forward. When investigators returned to the suspect's home in Massapequa Park, they expected another day of searching. But what they found shocked even the most experienced officers. Hidden inside dusty storage bins were dozens of old maps, burner phones, and a collection of surveillance notes. Each notebook was filled with addresses, license plates, and physical descriptions of women who had disappeared years earlier. It was a chilling level of organization that made one thing clear: this was not random. Behind the suburban calm of that house, something dark and deliberate had been unfolding for over a decade. It was an ordinary Thursday morning in Long Island. Sunlight bouncing off quiet suburban streets, neighbors sipping coffee, unaware that history was about to unfold. For years, detectives had quietly tracked a man whose name had finally surfaced. Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect living just miles from the beach where the victims were found. As investigators watched from unmarked cars, they observed his routine: coffee shop visits, commuting to Manhattan, phone calls that felt too carefully planned. But today was different. The moment he stepped out of his office, plainclothes officers moved in. Calmly, professionally, they surrounded him. There was no chaos, no violence, just the quiet click of handcuffs and the realization that a man who had blended into everyday life was now at the center of one of America's most haunting murder investigations. Cameras rolled as his name hit every news station. The quiet town of Massapequa Park would never look the same again. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, the nation was glued to their screens as Rex Heuermann was led into court for the first time. Cameras flashed, reporters filled the hallway, and the families of the victims watched in silence. Hearts heavy, eyes filled with years of unanswered pain. Inside the courtroom, the air was tense but calm. The suspect sat quietly beside his attorney, wearing a blank expression as prosecutors read the charges aloud. Every word carried the weight of nearly a decade of fear and uncertainty. Across the aisle, detectives who had spent years chasing shadows finally saw a face to the name that haunted them. The judge's gavel struck softly, echoing through the room like a reminder. Justice had only just begun. Outside, the crowd gathered, holding signs for truth and closure. No one knew what the verdict would bring, but one thing was certain. The Gilgo Beach case was no longer just a mystery. It was now a fight for justice in full view of the world. As the investigation deepened, the world began to learn more about Rex Heuermann, not as a name on a legal file, but as a man who had lived what seemed like two completely different lives. By day, he was an architect with a steady job in Manhattan. Colleagues described him as quiet, professional, even ordinary. He went to work, attended meetings, and returned to his home in Massapequa Park, a place filled with the sounds of children playing and neighbors mowing lawns. But behind the walls of that tidy suburban home, detectives found a life shrouded in secrecy. Boxes of evidence, old phones, documents, and items that made investigators pause. Nothing graphic was ever shown publicly, only described carefully, leaving the rest to the imagination. How could someone live among others for decades, unnoticed, while being linked to one of the nation's most chilling mysteries? That question echoed across America, a haunting reminder that evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it wears the face of normalcy. As news of the arrest spread across Long Island, shock turned into disbelief. The community of Massapequa Park, once known for its calm and safety, was suddenly at the center of national headlines. Neighbors who had waved at Rex Heuermann for years struggled to understand how the man they knew, the quiet architect who helped fix fences and chatted about weather, could be connected to something so dark. People gathered outside his home, some lighting candles for the victims, others standing in stunned silence. Parents held their children a little closer. Residents spoke about fear, confusion, and heartbreak, not just for the families of those lost, but also for their own shattered sense of safety. Local churches held vigils. Community leaders urged everyone to stay united and let the justice system run its course. Through the sadness, one emotion stood out: compassion. The people refused to let tragedy define them. Instead, they turned pain into empathy, lighting the night with hope for closure and peace. Months passed, but the story of the Gilgo Beach Murders was far from over. Each new headline brought another layer of questions. Investigators continued to search for connections, reviewing old files, retracing every phone call, every footprint, every possible clue. Inside courtrooms and police stations, quiet determination replaced the chaos of the early days. Detectives knew this case wasn't just about one man. It was about giving voices back to the victims and their families who had waited more than a decade for answers. Every piece of evidence mattered. Every truth uncovered brought them one step closer to justice. Yet, even as progress was made, one haunting question lingered. Were there more victims still out there? The search along the Long Island coast continued, waves crashing against the sand like a heartbeat that refused to fade. The Gilgo Beach case became more than a crime story. It became a reminder that even in darkness, persistence, truth, and compassion can still shine. The mystery may not be fully solved yet, but hope endures. One investigation, one answer, and one family at a time.